If you've ever assigned a task in SharePoint and then totally forgotten to follow up, you're not alone. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create custom reminders that automatically send using a people column, a date column, and some clever rules to keep your team on track. I'll walk through 3 different examples. First, a marketing task tracker, then a vendor contracts document library, and last, a department budget tracker. The best part, you'll see how easy it is to build these reminders without writing a single line of code or going into Power Automate. We're just going to be using SharePoint columns and rules that are written almost like a Mad Libs style. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to send reminders to specific people only when they're needed based on date or status. First, you'll need a SharePoint document library or a SharePoint list. That's where your information lives. Then we'll make sure you've got a due date column. This tells your reminder when to start in some cases. You'll also want a person column, so we know who to send the reminder to. And finally, we'll include either a status or a priority column. This will give your rule some more logic, like only sending reminders for high priority items or tasks that aren't complete yet. Today, we're going to be looking at 3 different lists and libraries. Here's an example of what one of these lists looks like. Here are some of the types of rules that we're going to be creating today. One of these is a notification if a budget value goes below $5,000. And here we can see what one of those types of notifications looks like, where we can see that the budget remaining value, we can see the item title, and we can see a custom message here. Let's start building. We'll start first with the marketing requests. You can see here that I have a list. I have a title of requests that have been submitted. I have a person that it's assigned to, a due date, a status, and a priority. And if internally the marketing team needs to follow up with the person who submitted this task. Now we're going to start here by clicking on the Automate button. And then you're going to look for the rules. And then you're going to click on Create a Rule. Now, the first rule that we're going to create is the when a date approaches. And so we're going to be looking at creating a rule that notifies us before that due date. So I'm going to go ahead and say 7 days, and we're going to choose the due date column. And then here we can choose who to send the email to. So this assigned to column is the name of my person column in this list. Or you can choose kind of out-of-the-box options like who the task was created by, or if you always want it to send to me. In this case, I'm going to select the Assigned To column and click Create. And now, whoever this task is assigned to, 7 days before that due date, they will get an email that this task is due. The next one that I want to create here, I'll go ahead and click Create Rule, is when a new item is created. And I want to know when a new item is created with that high priority. So instead of always here in this dropdown, I'm going to select if. And here we need to choose our column and what that condition is. So I'm going to choose the priority option. And when our priority is high, I want to get that email. So I'm going to send the email to the person it was assigned to. And here we can add a custom message for our rule. Now that I have my custom message, I can click Create, and now I have my second rule. Each list or library can hold up to 15 different rules. So if you wanted to add a notification 1 day before the due date, you could also have both of those running at the same time. Lastly, I'm going to set up a rule when a task is completed to notify the manager of this marketing team. I'll go ahead and click Create Rule, and we'll select when an item is modified. And we're looking at the status column. And when it changes to, and we want a specific value here, so we're going to say is, and then we'll choose the completed option. And in this case, I'm not going to send this to the person the task was assigned to here. Instead, I'll go ahead and type in the manager's name here. And you can see that we can add 1 email address here, or we can continue to add more email addresses. And I'll go ahead and add a custom message. Once I have my message, I can go ahead and click create. And now this list is set up to have 3 different and distinct rules for when the status is marked as completed to send to the manager, when a new high priority item is created to send that to whoever the task is assigned to, and then 7 days before any due date, send an email to the person it's assigned to. Now let's look at our vendor contracts library. We have a long list of internal contracts here with different contract owners, different renewal dates, different statuses, and different departments. I'm going to go ahead and start by clicking the Automate button and coming into Rules and create a rule. Now the first rule I'm going to create here is as that contract renewal date approaches, I want the contract owner to get a notification of that. So 30 days before the renewal date column, I want to send an email to the contract owner. Again, if it's a people column in SharePoint, whether it's a document library or a list, we're going to see that show up here as a sort of dynamic content in the email address input line. I'll go ahead and select contract owner and click create. And now we have that rule set up. Next rule I'll set up is to alert the contract owner if the status is marked as needs review. I'll go ahead and click create a rule. And I'm going to use this a file is modified here. And we're going to choose the column for the status. And when that changes to, and we're going to use a specific value, so we're going to choose is. And then our value here will be needs review. And then we're going to send that email to the contract owner. But maybe this is more of, we don't need the contract owner to look at it. We actually need a manager to look at it. We can go ahead and come back in here and we can manually add in the manager's name. Then we can add our custom message and then we'll click create here. Now we have these 2 rules set up where a manager is notified when the status is set to needs review, and 30 days before the renewal date, an email is sent to the contract owner. I think that's good for this document library. We'll exit out of this. And the last thing we'll come into is our fiscal year 25 budget tracker. Now here we have a set of projects and we have budgets for those projects and budget owners. I'm going to start by creating a rule where if the remaining budget is below a certain threshold, to notify that budget owner. In the Automate section, we'll click Rules and create a rule. And we're going to use the An Item is Modified option. And we're going to be looking at here that budget remaining column. Now here, instead of just is a specific value, what we're going to do here in our condition is we're going to say is less than or equal to, and we're going to be able to type in our number here. So if our budget is less than or equal to $5,000, I would like that person to be notified. I'm going to go ahead and in the send an email to, we'll click budget owner, and we can add a custom message here, and we'll click create. Lastly, let's look at how we assign a budget owner in this case. So now let's say that we have these set department names, and for every department, we know who the budget owner will be. We don't need people to manually update this budget owner column. What we can do is we can select automate, and under rules, we can create a new rule. And here, let's go ahead and say when a new item is created, and we're going to use the if condition. And we're going to be looking at that department name column. So if that department name is a specific value. So when we set this up, we're going to have to create a rule for every single different department name. So the first one here, we can look at if the department name is finance. And now, instead of sending an email to somebody, we're going to set the value of a specific column. So here we select our column name, and we're going to select the budget owner column. And here is where we're going to set the budget owner. So if it's the finance department, I'll go ahead and say that Alicia here is our budget owner. And I can click create. And now that rule is set up for the finance department. And you would just continue to click create rule and set those up for every single other department. Now we've set up 7 different rules. All of your lists and your libraries are going to be sending those notifications, updating those lists automatically based on the rules that you've set very easily. Have fun setting up rules.